Hey guys, today we're looking at the new best champions in 8.12 to give you an idea of what this crazy meta actually looks like just a little bit. It's kind of a mess really, but as always, the list and timestamps are down below if you would like to skip to your role. AD carry is in a bit of a state, to put it nicely, but early game champions are still okay. It's just really the crit ones that were majorly screwed. So Lucian is like the premier AD right now, has a brutal lane phase that nets him a big lead, which he can then snowball to a victory. There isn't really much a weaker AD can do against him, to be honest. He's going to jump in, he'll trade, he'll chunk you. Even if you can return some damage, he's going to hit it back up with his lifesteal and then do the same again. Blade First is working so well for him for that reason. Essence Reaver second adds another level of damage that other AD carries just really cannot match. He's going to have some lifesteal, he'll have health, he'll have mobility anyway from his kit and a lot of damage. That means he can survive the kind of other damage champions around him and actually put out some damage himself. He does start to fall off a little bit later in comparison, but most games are over by 30 minutes now, so it doesn't really matter. A lot of the things we just said about Lucian apply to Miss Fortune as well. She has some good auto damage, especially if you go for a crit build, but it's mostly around your abilities. You can stay a bit further away, like from range, basically. You burst trade, which others can't really return, and you can go really aggressive. Lethality is actually better now as well. Tabbies are worse, which was a good counter to them, and all AD carries have a little bit less armor than before in their base stats, so you're actually getting closer to that 0 sweet spot. Miss Fortune's late phase is just pretty insane, really, but the good part about this is because she isn't that tough to play, and because of your massive ultimate, you can actually still have a really good mid-game impact as well. The reason I think Miss Fortune is just a little bit better than Draven, for example, is that really she's easier and ends up doing a bit more in teamfights with that huge ultimate. There are 3 other ADs that you could play that are pretty good though, like Kai'Sa is still good, but has really suffered around her nerf, so we've had like a few patches ago. If you can last until 2 items, you're going to be okay though. Draven is very similar to the ones we talked about, Lucian and Miss Fortune, a lane bully who can spiral out of control with his damage. Ezreal is safer, he's good against his meta, and because his items are a lot cheaper, he ends up getting ahead of a lot of the others in power. So before we go on to the mid lane, which is normal, we're going to go into some bot lane carries. AD carries are not the only things that you can play bot lane now. In fact, these are actually better than running a normal AD in some games. Yasuo is probably the best non-AD carry, bot lane carry that you can play. He works well for a lot of different reasons, but maybe the most commonly missed one is because AD carry's base stats were nerfed a few patches ago, making surviving the constant harass in lane a lot easier. He obviously has a passive shield for that as well, which helps, so he can even run double Targons to make it a bit easier. There are a lot of supports as well who can set up your ultimate for free, which means dominating a 2v2 is not really that difficult, especially against an AD carry. Finally, you also scale well. Your team doesn't really lose out on what traditional AD carry brings to the team because you still have that crit damage. Vladimir is kind of the AP version of this thing though. He can sustain through the trades and he's already an AD carry's worst nightmare. He's going to pull, he's going to burst them. Vlad has a lot of damage. He can impact from just really like 1 to 2 items, honestly, and still scales amazingly into the game after that. Something that's kind of popped up more and more for bot lane Vladimir is picking up a Spellbinder first item. It provides some move speed, but it's a ton of damage. In theory, you shouldn't really need a Protobelt as much as well if you have some setup from your support to keep them in place. So now we're going to go into the mid lane though. Mid laners who can be a bit more aggressive are actually doing amazingly well right now, except when you run into the support mid carry jungle strat, but we're going to ignore that. Normal stuff, we have like Talon, Zed, Zoe, Fizz that stand out. So Talon is probably the best assassin we have at the moment. He thrives in his chaos style games with a ton of fights, so he's actually getting better and better. He's got this 100% very quick one-shot combo, which will catch a lot of people off guard. You won't really expect it, even though he's kind of popular now. He is also a roaming god, so he picks up these Moby boots. He can be in another lane really before you even realize he hasn't just backed off a little bit and still in lane. A lot of fights are actually happening around the jungle now as well, especially with Scuttle Crab, so wall hopping is kind of even more broken than it used to be. Also remember that wave clear was nerfed for a lot of different champions, a lot of mages, making it much easier for Talon to be the one pushing and roaming himself and not just getting shoved under tower now, which is really big. Fizz is very similar, thrives in games with a lot of kills in them, so he gets his items a bit quicker and kind of just snowballs out of control. Once he gets ahead, it's kind of insane really. He has more mobility than a normal assassin champion. He can nuke people down as well though. It's just like if games are faster, if games have more fighting in them, you really want a champion who will be able to join in from mid lane. Mid lane is so important. They have access to bot lane, to top lane. Roaming means a lot when leads can actually snowball a bit faster now as well. With a strong jungler and a strong mid lane like Fizz, you actually end up winning all the 2v2s that happen and you basically get complete map control. Zed is kind of the same as Talon. Assassins are having a field day this patch, like there's so many fights. Zoe can almost solo carry a game though with her long range poke and her seeps. It's a little bit different, but she can skirmish like the others and carry in fights. LeBlanc is going to be my honorable mention, steadily getting better as the patch starts to go on, but she's now one of the most popular mid laners apparently as well. I feel like she's a little bit too inconsistent to stick with the others here, but actually if you're good with her, then you can definitely do a lot of work. Her damage is nuts. She can start to impact fights straight away in the game, and she's not easy to shut down either. Moving on to the jungle. Junglers that can farm well, gank, but also duel and get the Scuttle Crab are going to be the top tier ones. So it's stuff like Taliyah, Udyr, Xin Zhao, Nocturne, and Master Yi. Taliyah is actually a little bit worse now after the nerfs in 8.12, but she's still a top tier jungler when played correctly. If you're sitting there like, wait, what did I miss? Why is Taliyah in the jungle? Basically, they removed the damage penalty on her Q for monsters, allowing her Q to absolutely wreck the jungle. She does have some insane burst still. She can flip Scuttle to nuke that down at the same time. Runic Echoes was buffed, and the new Morello actually gives her a crazy 2-item spike in power, which other champions can't really match. If you think about it, Taliyah is a roaming mid laner anyway. You push, then you roam. You don't really play like a traditional mid laner, so this is why she actually works in the jungle, because you want to be roaming and ganking anyway. Nocturne is a really good choice outside of the big boys, the popular ones though. He's getting more popular now, but still not quite up there. We've seen him in pro play a bit, which I'm guessing helps his case as well, but he's in a really good spot. Long range ganks, which are great to bypass wards and get the game going, but also great to counter gank or counter roams more, which we have a lot more of. There is this insane damage combo you can actually have where you pair up a Duskblade and a Stormrazor together. The burst is able to one-shot so easily. He's really good at dueling with his fear. I can control Scuttle same way, but he can definitely carry with his damage. Udyr hasn't really played a ton, but still one of the best junglers, can duel well, has ridiculous single target damage, and he's going to demolish Scuttle Crab. Xin Zhao is like the early game king. Great ganks and a lot of early damage. Hurt a little bit by the Stair Exchange though, so he's not quite as top tier as before. Master Yi is honestly best when paired with a support mid laner like a Taric or a Braum or something, but he can do well without that as well, without the cheese. Definitely keeps getting better as the game goes on. So Lee Sin is going to be my honorable mention. I got a few buffs in 8.12 that brought him back up to a good level. Remember, Lee always has a bad overall win rate because everybody likes to play him, whether they're good or bad. The meta definitely suits him though with these fights and these ganks and stuff. The new Sterix is actually really good for him as well, so if you pick that up third, it can definitely help you carry a bit more. We've talked about like AD carries and bot laners as well, but actually supports can control bot lane most of the time. They'll be making the plays, and a good one can really control the entire lane phase. Nami is kind of perfect for that style of game. She's a champion who likes to bully, but has good crowd control and damage, also builds to protect people. It's honestly very hard to lose lane with an army, I think. She'll take a lot of the pressure off the AD carry and be able to heal them if they take bad trades as well, so they can stay in lane, keep their CS numbers up. Being this sort of hybrid support, defensive and offensive at the same time, means she's never a bad choice to take in a game. You can now damage other sensor support, so that is going to help you there. You can poke or crowd control more aggressive ones like melee ones. The only issue you might have is if like a Brand or a Zyra catches you, they're going to burst you down. Having a good lane phase, but still a decent team fight and crowd control and like some defensive stuff is what separates her from the others right now. The Brand is really for those people who want to take a more direct approach to winning games when playing support. As you know, AD carries are not that strong right now, especially not in the lane phase. So when you pick Brand, you're basically picking another carry. Obviously, you're not getting any farm, you're not going to get any gold, but you won't really need it. Just getting 1 to 2 items will be enough to have a huge impact. Your poke will stick more because AD carry regen is down. It's worse now. You'll be able to chip away better, their health bars than before, and net more kills after that. It's weird to say, but the reason Brand is so good as a support right now is because he almost becomes the carry to start with in the lane phase, and then the AD carry takes over later. Morgana with Black Shield can really help at the moment though. Hitting 1 bind is probably enough to get a kill after level 6, which is pretty disgusting, but at least she has a bit more of an aggressive side as well. Fiddle has the poke, the fear, the silence. They make playing against him so difficult, and then you throw in a huge damage ultimate to top things off, and he can actually really carry. The one I want to mention is Pyke. He can struggle against some of the more poke or like mage supports unless you go proper ham, but the AD carries around him right now are actually really good for diving in. You have such an overloaded kit though, it's ridiculous. A stun, a hook back thingy, instant stealth to get away or to dive in as well. Once I think people figure out how to play him more and actually how to build him more especially, he'll be a lot better. but a good one can definitely create a really strong kill lane and get a massive lead. Finally, top lane, it seems to be full of bruisers right now, like battling it out and bringing a bunch of damage to fights. There are a lot of decent ones that can do that, but like Renekton, Irelia, Camille, and Darius are definitely up there. Renekton has his precious little Essence Reaver now to take a lead he might get and kind of run away with the game. You don't have to pick it up if you don't want to, but the extra cooldowns when your ultimate is active will definitely help you dueling or in a team fight, like both. Pretty much any situation it's going to be good in. Renekton already has a really strong lane, right? He just ends up kind of falling off a little bit as you go through the game, but with more damage and a faster game, that isn't as much of an issue. Also, the new Sterak's is really good for him. Giving him bonus AD now feeds into his abilities a bit more, but also keeps him alive. He does have a few rough matchups that might be a little bit hard, but against the meta champions at least, he will pretty much always do well. Darius is a very similar idea, like win lane, then win the game after that. You can still go Trinity Force and Ghost Flash if you want to. It still works and has a higher chance to pop off, I guess. Cleaver into Sterak's though actually works now as well because of the change to bonus AD. Grabbing a Sterak's just seems like a really good item in 8.12 for these kind of bruisers. If you look at the stats of the game right now, to climb this patch, what you really have to do is win your lane and be useful for the first 30 minutes, by which time most games will have ended. If it doesn't end by then, it's kind of unlucky really, but Darius is one of the best at getting a lead and running away with it that early into the game. Irelia is still completely busted in my opinion. Should be banned really. High skill cap for sure, but once you learn her, you're able to do more than pretty much any other champion. Camille is still top tier as well. A really good carry bruiser, able to do well in lane and roam around afterwards. Probably the best roaming out of most of these bruisers. You have a lot of burst though, even early into the game. Garen might seem like a weird choice to stick as my honorable mention, but it's the new Sterak's here, like completely. Black Cleaver and Sterak's is a new 2-item combo that works amazingly well. You have double health items, but both are giving you extra damage. Sterak's gives you more AD, Cleaver gives you a little bit, but it burns through their armor to make that AD do even more. You're tanky, but you do a lot of damage. It's a really good combo. So that wraps up this patch. This one was honestly a lot harder to break down. It's a bit of a mess. I spent a lot longer researching for the video, but that's the most sense I can make out of it for now. Thank you for watching the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, but for now, I'll leave you with the robots.